You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today, John and I are going to be discussing some of the new cameras and lenses announced since our last gear-related podcast back in the fall. Also joining us today is the very same guest we had on our last gear-related podcast, B&H Senior Sales Trainer Kevin Rickert. Welcome back, sir.
Hello. Thanks for having me once again for this nicely curated gear roundup that we're going to do today.
It's going to be fun. Before we start, I want to mention if we sound extra fresh and crispy today, that's because the good folks at Audio-Technica have loaned us two BP40 large diaphragm dynamic broadcast microphones to test drive for a few episodes. And it's exciting to have such great gear in our home studios. I might add the matte black finish goes very, very well with my camera system there. I like it. We look forward to using these mics, and we thank Audio-Technica for the opportunity to give them a few test spins around the block. But on with the show. Welcome back, Kevin. Like I said earlier, Kevin has been with us before, and as a sales trainer, he instructs our pro photo staff on the features and specs of new cameras, often getting these cameras in his hands well before anybody else does, so he knows his stuff. So again, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the Sony Alpha A1, 50 megapixels, faster than a speeding bullet, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. This is a monster camera.
Yeah, most definitely. If anyone wanted a camera that did it all and had a bank account for it, that'll be the camera to do. It's basically, the way I explain it is basically if you took a blender and took a A7R4, an A7S3, and a little sprinkle of A9 Mark II, and you get the Sony Alpha 1. So like you said before, 50 megapixels, 30 frames per second, very fast. 8K 30, which is huge for people who want the capability to do 8K. 4K 120, very nice viewfinder, and 1/400th sync for using flashes, which is remarkable with a mirrorless camera like that.
If you could pick out one or two specs or new features on this that really stand out, that really put this apart from other cameras.
I mean, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to Sony, everything is just derived from the same cloth. It's just what's inside of it that makes it different. One thing that got me when I played around with this camera was the speed. That stood out. Like 30 frames per second is just basically you could turn your photos into 30 frames per second video, which is just crazy. A lot of the other features are coming from the last model that was released, the A7S3. So a lot of it has like the same menu system. It doesn't, the screen doesn't flip around. The viewfinder is very high quality. But Sony's very consistent on what they put out when it comes to just the body type.
Speaking about the body, I have one question. I've seen pictures of the camera. I've not handled it. It's one of the downsides of working from home in the past years, that not being around the office, we get to miss a lot of stuff that we would normally see. How does this camera physically feel as far as a robust build and how it fills your hand compared to the A7 series cameras? I have an A7R3, and so I'm very familiar with it. This is like also the third of that series I've had. What's the big difference between the 7s and the new A1 as far as when you pick it up? What would you note right off the bat?
Well, honestly, holding it, it's a 4th generation Sony Alpha camera, despite what's inside of it. It uses the same form factor as the A7S III, which is 4th generation. A9 Mark II is 4th generation. A7R4 is 4th generation. So body type is very, very similar. So obviously, if you haven't had the chance to pick up one of the 4th generation Sonys, the grip is more pronounced. So kind of quiets those people who were complaining in the beginning with the 1st and 2nd generation Sony cameras, like, oh, it feels like a toy. I think Sony has a good job developing the ergonomics by generation, because if you remember the 1st generation of the Sony Alphas, it was hardly a grip, and the shutter, if I recall, was at the top of the camera itself, and then they started putting on the grip protrusion over and over, and they just put this more on the forefront, so it's easier to reach when you take a shot. But it's very similar to The fourth generation Sonys.
Just an example, I know in the 7s you still have a plastic door on the battery door cover. Is it kind of the same? Not that I've had a problem with it at all, but I look at it sometimes, and to me that's a vulnerable point. And I know that if you look at the flagship cameras from some of the other companies, when you pick it up and when you look at the way these things are all put together, it's a little bit more beefier. Is that the same situation here between the 7s and the new camera, or is it comparable? And then again, I'm not dumping on the old one. I'm just curious to know if it's upgraded at all.
No, it's they did upgrade the ceiling on it internally, but and the doors are a bit better. But that was a wholesale change with when the A7S III came out.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
Okay. And who do you? I mean, the A7 series are known to. Well, they have the 3 models that appeal theoretically to different shooters. What's the game plan for the Alpha A1? Who are they trying to appeal to?
Well, when you see on when it was released, you could actually obviously tell that it's a bit of a servo fired at the Canon R5, but there's a price difference. So when I look at this camera, this is for someone who knows what they want. They want a high resolution camera, and they may want to back it up with high quality video, maybe for some B-roll for their shoots. A wedding photographer who instead of wants two separate cameras and has the money and wants to have one camera that does it all. Could do your video for those times that you need to do video, and you have your high resolution shots if you can do like engagement photos on the side, photos in that regard. So basically is your Swiss Army knife camera.
Also sports photographers, I mean,
yes.
with the frame rates we're talking about here, I mean, they have to look at the camera. It has to be a consideration if that's what you do.
Yes, definitely. 50 megapixels. And you could obviously tone it down. You don't need to shoot 50 megapixels, especially when you're doing sports photography. So, because that's obviously a lot of bandwidth that'll take up. But for the most part, Sony did add like new Wi-Fi into it with the MIMO Wi-Fi in there, so it's much quicker. Has a Ethernet port in there, so if someone's using that for that, yes, it's going to be a great camera with the 30 frames per second. The autofocus is phenomenal. It's and the recording time too is just great.
Do you think it will push out any of the other models, the A9? Do you think, or any of the A7s?
I don't think so. I think with the way that they're trying to, set up the chessboard, so to speak, they'll have their default 7 for the people who don't need that high resolution, who are fine with 4K. So as of right now, that's the A7 III. And then someone wants just that high resolution, may do a little video, but mostly wants high resolution. You have the 61 megapixel A7R4. If someone's doing mostly video, doesn't need 8K, but wants 4K 120, you have the A7S III. If someone just wants 20 frames per second, doesn't need 50 megapixels, just wants speed, the A9 Mark II. And if, like I said, if someone wants it all, that's the Alpha 1.
Right. And I think it's important also to keep in mind that anybody who considers cameras like the Alpha A1, depending on the camera that you've been using to that point, you might also have to upgrade your computer system because you're dealing with a lot more data flowing in. Your files are going to be a lot bigger. And depending on how long you want to sit there waiting for something to open up, there's a good chance you're going to have to upgrade your computer system to keep up with the demands of such amounts of data.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. It's especially when you do video. You're taking high resolution photos over a course of time, and not every computer is going to be able to decompress the newer codecs that exist in these cameras. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Obviously, the camera gives you a choice on which codec to choose, but some people just get really stars in the eyes and they're like, oh, I'm going to record 8K right out the box, and then they get put into the computer and they didn't realize that was part of the whole equation. These are digital cameras. You need a computer.
All right, so should we jump over to the Fujifilm GFX 100S? I mean, there hasn't been a lot of new cameras announced in 2021 so far, but the ones that have come out are pretty impressive. The GFX 100S is, the follow-up to the GFX 50 and 100 medium format digital mirrorless cameras. Anything special about this one worth mentioning?
For me, it's 100 megapixels in the size of a standard DSLR.
Right.
So you're having medium format become more affordable to a lot of shooters thanks to Fujifilm with their GFX system. It's been, from what I could tell, it's been really, really well received in the photo industry, considering its medium format. But in my mind, looking at it, considering what they started with the first 100 megapixel camera that they had, which was like a big camera. I mean, most people would have went for that if they really needed 100 megapixels. But this makes it more appealing to a lot of people because it's
the form factor is more familiar. It's not as bizarre as the earlier ones. I'm just blown away by the price point on this. This is a 100 megapixel medium format camera, and it's $6,000. And that, you have to really just think about that. How is it $6,000 a lot of money? Yes, it is. No two ways about it. If you're earning your living doing this, it could be a very good investment and well worthwhile. But for what you're getting, I mean, not all that long ago, a 12 megapixel medium format back would cost you $50,000. Not that long ago. And here you have something you can sling over your shoulder that's 100 megapixel, $6,000.
I know. So we had two really nice $6,000 cameras come out this year so far. So
yeah, this is less expensive than the Sony we were just speaking about. So that's pretty impressive. Yeah, and I have heard from some portrait and still life photographers who are really interested in this. So I hope it works out for them.
I was about to say, I think it's perfect for that, for people who are doing studio shoots, and also for like if you're going to be traveling landscapes and you want 100 megapixels for that reason. It's definitely going to be the camera, especially someone's already invested in the Fuji, even though it's a young system. But you had the 50 megapixel ones. Now it's like, oh, we have 100 megapixels, but it was a monster of a camera. Now you're basically taking that and making it smaller and just like, listen, $6,000 could go out and have 100 megapixels. You could crop in if you want, recompose, and the video is no slouch either if you want to do some video with 4K 30 with the F-Log. But the stabilization inside of it, it's a nice, very, very nice camera when it in the medium format realm. And I kind of, like I said before, I do like what Fujifilm is doing with making medium format more accessible. It's no longer this like lofty, like place to reach in photography. Now it's coming to more reasonable pricing, and it probably will continue to be in that nice range as far as like that 6,000, 3,000 on the lower end price point.
And it also offers. It's always so important to keep in mind that Fujifilm, it's not just Fujifilm cameras. I've always felt that they're an incredibly innovative company. The Hasselblad H system was designed by, it's a Hasselblad Fuji collaboration, and they use Fuji lenses on that, and the glass is really, really good. And even back in the film days, Fuji made autofocus 645 point-and-shoot cameras, medium format film point-and-shoot cameras that were wonderful, and a 617 camera and the X-Pan. If anybody who shoots film, the Hasselblad X-Pan, that's a Fujifilm camera. And if you outside the United States, it was sold under the Fujifilm name. So they have a long track record of designing very innovative, progressive cameras that work really, really well. Some people design innovative cameras that go off in crazy directions that you wonder what they were thinking. But Fuji seems to hit it on the head all the time, and they continue to do so. And that, I guess we could take that as a little segue to the XE4, which is a lot smaller, but a Fujifilm nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. What I like about the XE4 is that it's a little bit of a conundrum when it comes down to where it is, but it makes sense for people who are looking or had the X100 series, which is a great camera. The new one came out basically a year ago. But if someone said, I wish this was interchangeable lenses, the XE4 takes that idea and just makes it an interchangeable version of the X100 series, because Fujifilm is really consistent in what's inside. It's always, usually for a generation, it's always going to be the same sensor. It's always going to be the same processor. You just really have to choose your body type. So if you want a rangefinder style on the high end, you have the X Pro 3. If you want something a little bit smaller, you have the XE4. If you want more of a DSLR style, you have the XT3, XT4, the was it XT30 at this point. But for the most part, you're going to get the same image quality, and there may be like a little bit of key features that you may want. Does this have more film simulations? Does this have better video? But Fujifilm keeps it really consistent as far as they make you choose whichever style. Oh, and I forgot the XS10 too. So if someone didn't want those little film-like knobs on top for a film camera, and they want something more traditional with a PSAM dial, that's that camera. So they let people pick and choose based on whatever style of camera they want, and there may be some features on the side as far as video is concerned. But it's fairly consistent, and I do like this camera because I was going back and forth because I really wanted the X100V. It's a great travel camera. It's basically equivalent to a 35 millimeter. So you just put it in your bag, go. And that's all the focal length you're going to need. So I was like, oh, maybe the XE4 is a good one to do. You can just change lenses. And I'm like, no. I'm not going to worry about changing lenses. That's why I want to get the X100V, because I don't want to put myself in that situation that I'm trying to decide which lens I want for which system. But for those who want something small, throw it in your bag, especially with the new lenses that like they came out with the 27 millimeter, a new version of that one. It's a nice small package you could just throw in your bag and go nuts with.
One thing I wanted to mention quickly, going back to the GFX 100S, is that it is a medium format camera, of course, but it does offer a range of format of aspect ratios. So you can customize your sensor to the size that you need if that medium format is not what you want, including 65 by 24 aspect ratio.
That's a good point.
Let's jump on over to lenses, because there have been a handful of lenses that have come out this year. And we might as well start with the ones that are most recent. Sony put out 3 fast aperture GM lenses, or one is a G lens and the other 2 are GM, I believe. But if you want to fill us in on those, Kevin, any information?
Yeah, sure. So Sony did something very strange in regards to timing. So last week they came out with the 50 1.2 GM, which is a very well built. It's basically Sony's response to people who said you can't do a 1.2 lens on your lens mount, and lo and behold, Sony came out with the 50 1.2 GM. So it's engineered very well built. A lot of people are excited for this lens. It goes for around a little under 2,000, and it looks like what Sony's doing is, considering the other lens that came out earlier this year, which was the 35 1.4 GM. It looks like Sony is replacing their ZA lenses that came out, like the 35 1.4 Zeiss, the 50 1.4 Zeiss that came out a while ago. It looks like they're putting them out as GM lenses. So it's an interesting point to see what they're doing, because with the GM series, you get the XA elements, so you get the smooth bokeh, and just like very, very, very nice resolution. And so it's building up for the future. But the other lenses that Sony came out with, the ones yesterday, so basically 2 weeks in a row, we got a 50, where their line of 3 G lenses. So they have a 24, a 40, and a 50. The 40 and the 50 are both 2.5 aperture lenses. The 24 is a 2.8. I call these lenses cupcakes, because everybody's like, oh, they're not pancakes. They're basically cupcakes. They look like cupcakes. They're the same size.
They're all the same size, weight, and price, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That is correct. They all take the same filter diameter. They are the same size exactly, just different as far as focal length. So it looks like that's what Sony was trying to do, keep everything consistent, because there's, considering like the other lenses that were announced earlier on, I believe late last year, were the Sigma I series lenses, which were the 24, 35, and 65. They're all different filter diameters. And it's not that the size is a little bit different, but Sony went for this on purpose, because you can see with the apertures, with the 2.5 on the 40 and the 50, and the 24 just being 2.8, just because of like the size limitations. But I'm really excited about these, honestly, because they all start at around $600.
Yeah.
And
they're light and they're small, and there's a lot of appeal to this. And if I could just throw my 2 cents in, every once in a while I follow different forums for different cameras and lenses and all that stuff. And it's amazing how many times I see people saying, I just bought a so-and-so camera, what lens should I go with it? along the, well, don't buy the camera until you know what you're shooting. But one of the lenses that just came out is this, the Sony FE 40 millimeter 2.5. That would be the kind of lens I would recommend to somebody who's starting out, because 40 millimeter is about as close to perspective wise the way we see the world, we perceive it. This lens kind of absorbs the same spatial relationships. So it really is a true normal lens. And if you start with a lens like this, that's quite affordable and is, again, right dead center, you could learn what normal should look like. And then if you feel that you want always to be wider or getting closer, from there you could make an intelligent choice of your second lens based on what the 40 won't do for you. If it doesn't get close enough, well, you need a longer lens. And if it's not wide enough, well, you need a wider. So it's a good starting point, and it's a fantastic walk-around lens. 40 millimeter, you really can't go wrong with. That's my 2 cents.
And I agree with that. I've been wanting a 40 for a while within the Sony. Years ago, I had the 40 2.8 pancake for the Canon mount.
Sure.
Years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is great. And then I stopped using it. I went to Sony around 2013. I've been using Sony. And then when I started getting to the film cameras, normally those lenses were, the small ones were around like 38 millimeter, 40 millimeter, around there. So it really got my eye attuned to the 40 millimeter focal length. So I was like, Sony has to come out with a 40. Someone has to come out with a 40. Then you had other brands that came out with a 45. I'm like, no, can someone please come out with a 40? It's like, why is this so hard to do? It's like 40, just do the 40. Finally, Sony did it. And once I saw it, I'm like, that's the lens I need to get just to walk around, keep it on my camera the whole time. I'm really excited about this one. So,
yep.
It also has the physical aperture ring, which I think, maybe to your point, Alan, somebody who's not sure what lens they want to get, they grab one with the aperture ring. They learn their lessons that way a bit too. I do want to mention quickly about the 50 millimeter f1.2. I mean, is it too big? I mean, it looks, obviously,
is it as big as the
F1.2?
Nikon? The Nikon, it looks like a 500 millimeter lens. The first time I saw that, it's like I almost fell over. How does this one compare?
I think these are smaller. Yeah, from what I've been reading about it, it's a smaller lens comparatively. It's around the same size as the 50 ZA, the 51.4 ZA that exists for the Sony
okay.
E-mount.
All right.
So.
All right, so Sony's putting out a whole bunch of things for kind of all across the board for lower, mid-range prices, and then their top end GMs. That's great.
Well, when they went mirrorless, they promised the biggest problem is there were no lenses to go with this great little camera. Now we have I don't know how many lenses. It's got to be over 50, at least, right? I mean, they make a lot of lenses now.
E-mount overall, I believe there is 63, and that includes APS-C.
Oh, so, yeah, okay, yeah. If you can't find something, I don't know what you're looking for at that point.
And not to mention all the third parties that are available too. I mean,
that's not counting the third parties, and it fills in anything that's not there. And some extremely good third party options too. It's not just junk anymore. Right. Some third party stuff is really, really good.
Well, let's jump over
Speaking of really, really good.
Go for
Leica came out with two. The Leica Apo Summicron M35 f2 spheric. That is their latest version of their classic 35 f2. It's aside from the spheric glass, it's apochromatic design, which further corrections. And a big deal about this one, it has extra special close focusing. I don't remember the exact name, but it's about twice as close as most rangefinder lenses focus. And that's always been a weak spot for rangefinder cameras, at least to me, because I like focusing real close. And this lens, it gives you all the benefits of a classic 35 f2 Summicron, and you can get in real close with this one too. So I think it's going to be a very popular lens in the long term. And then for the SL cameras, they came out with the 28 f2 spheric. That's also an Apo Summicron. And I use the 28 f2 spheric for the M camera. And that's an extraordinary lens. I don't know how the optical formula is different in this one. Again, this is for the SL. But no doubt, it's a very good lens. I'm sure.
It's really nice to see that L-mount is getting some. Well, with the L-mount alliance with Sigma, Panasonic, and Leica, it's just like you have these lenses coming out at different price points. So it's like it depends what camera you're using, because you have like the SL series from Leica, then you have like the FP from Sigma, which will kind of call for different lenses, and then you have the range of Lumix S cameras that exist. So you have all these, getting more choices on there. It's still not to where we need it, I feel. But, and on that note, with that same day that 28 SL was announced from Leica, Panasonic did announce their 70-300 4.5 to 5.6 macro lens. So it gives half size macro compatibility capability, dual IS if you have the proper camera. It's a nice everyday telephoto option, and a lot of people like it because it's dust splash and freeze resistant. It's a good price, so if someone wants something more affordable for their L mount Panasonic camera, it exists, and they're kind of fleshing out the line a little bit with that lens, and also the previously released 85, which they needed to do as well. So that's a nice affordable compact portrait lens at $600, which is also weather sealed. So now that line is getting kind of fleshed out, including what's out there from Leica and what Sigma announced, especially the ones I mentioned before, the 24, 35, and 65. The I-series lenses from Sigma also work with L-mount, obviously, because of the alliance, but I see that line getting more fleshed out as we go along. But it's not, we talked about how Sony had that issue when it first came out with just like being like, it's not a lot of lenses. You only have 4 choices over here. Now they have 63. So the Lumix line being still kind of young in the terms of a system, it's starting to get fleshed out with the lenses that most people are looking for and affordable to get into the system, like with a Panasonic S5 or such like that.
Yeah.
And Kevin, what do you think about the Sigma 28-70 f2.8, which was recently announced?
That's the DGDNC.
Right, the C for contemporary, which puts it more, I guess, at the consumer level as opposed to the art line, aimed a bit more at the pros. But I did, an announcement review on that, and it seems like a pretty good lens. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a smaller lens, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
No, it is a smaller version compared to the 24-70 DGDN art. A lot of people here are excited about it because before you had like the 2.8 for Sony, you had the 24-70 GM, which is big lens. I have that one. That's a big boy. Then you had, and Tamron came out with their 28-75,
which is a very nice lens.
Yes, a lot of people like that one too. And then Sigma came out with this one, and from what I recall, this is the same almost optical design as a smaller version of the 24-70 art lens that they have for the mirrorless. So they made a small, everyday, fast zoom for people who need that. And it's way affordable too, which makes it even great. So now you have, like we said, we have a lot of options now within the Sony ecosystem. So if someone doesn't want to spend up to $2,000 or $1,500 or such, you have a really nice sub $1,000 2.8 aperture lens.
And they made it also, and it's also for the L mount as well.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, that's right.
It is, and you're right. I mean, it's kind of a pared down version of the art series, but the size and the weight should attract a lot of people. I mean, to have a 2.8 28-70 that is as small as this is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a great range. That's a very good range.
And before we jump to the next thing, on that note of having an affordable everyday zoom, the other really good third-party brand, Tamron, had the 17-70 2.8, which is basically your equivalent to almost like a 24 to 105-ish type lens, basically 25 to 105 or something like that.
Right.
$800 around there. It's almost the same idea. If you have an APS-C Sony, you want something to walk around every day with, and it's fast, you have that lens. And it's a good alternative to the 16-55 that Sony announced, I believe last year or the year before. But it's another good option. These third-party brands are stepping up to the plate, giving creative focal lengths that may have not existed before. So the consumer has a lot of options depending on what they're trying to do.
Okay, we are going to take a short break for traffic and weather, and we're going to come back with more gear talk, talking about Pentax lenses and more toys. Stay tuned. This episode of the B&H Photography Podcast is produced using Audio-Technica microphones. Check the link in our show notes for the Audio-Technica product page on the B&H website. Okay, we are back. Let's start the Pentax, the HD FA. Oh, I love all these letters. Pentax came out with a little trio of lenses, and they're the HD Pentax-FA, the 31 millimeter f1.8 limited, 43 1.9 limited, and 77 millimeter 1.8 limited. It's really funny. The focal lengths are, they probably used to round it off to 30, 45, and 75, but now they're being more accurate because people used to call them out in this stuff. What do you know of these lenses? I have not handled them. I read about them, but any hands-on with this, Kev?
Not with Pentax. I rarely get hands-on with Pentax, and considering that it is Pentax, not to say anything bad about Pentax, it's just like it's one of those brands that are currently just forgotten, but they still push out lenses, which is good for the people who have film cameras too, because these will work for that. Because they came out just like F-mount has been around for a very long period of time, and since Pentax puts all this engineering into their lenses, it allows everything to work back to like a K1000 or LX or MX, which is great because those people aren't forgotten as far as people who have Pentax cameras, and put these on there. They have the pleasing bokeh. They have the new coatings on there. They're compact. And for people who want something that's just small, they can throw in their bag, if they're shooting with a newer K-series camera or an older film camera, they still have options to shoot with, which is great. So it's really good. I want to see Pentax come with just something exciting. I know they've been saying and they won't go mirrorless, things of that nature, but it's just like that brand that just needs to like say something like, I'm here, we're still here, because I feel like a lot of people just don't overlook them, especially since a lot of the K-mount cameras are really, really well built with their shake reduction, their sealing. It's just that they don't get the billing like a Canon or Sony.
Well, it's not branded. It's not branded as well as it should be. It's always been a smaller company. I started off, I was using Pentax. I know people that still do. They put out very, very good products, technically and aesthetically and everything else. And their lenses are quite good. One thing I will say about this little trio, the 31, 43, and 77 millimeter, these are all relatively smaller lenses. And what's really nice about them is that they are state-of-the-art in terms of optical design and coatings, and they could be very easily adapted to any number of mirrorless cameras. So if you do own a mirrorless camera and you're looking for smaller, fast primes, definitely look into this. With adapters, you can use these lenses, and I don't know anybody who's ever bad-mouthed the Pentax lens. I've owned a bunch of them in the past. They have wonderful characteristics and a good track record. And again, I think it's more of an issue of branding that's always been kind of hurtful to them, because their products are quite good. So that's my take on that.
The look of that 43 millimeter is great. It's tiny.
Yeah.
It has a physical aperture ring. It's affordable. To me, that's an ideal lens.
It's quick and it's really close to
really
true
fast.
normal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's the diagonal of the sensor.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay.
It is,
and,
yes.
and like you said, it's good to see Pentax putting stuff out, and maybe not, quote unquote, the sexy releases like Sony's putting out, etc. But there's also 3 new Fujifilm lenses that came out. 2 for the XF, 2 XF lenses, and the 1 GF 80 millimeter. All look pretty interesting. That GF 80 millimeter is f1.7.
That's awfully fast for medium format. That is very high speed. It's if our listeners do not know from medium format, haven't used it, f1.7 is like 0.095. It's real fast. It's ridiculously wide for medium format.
It's 63 equivalent if you're thinking in 35 millimeter terms. So that's a nice middle ground between like for portraits and such.
Right. Yeah, it's beautiful. Anything about the other 2 lenses, the XF 27 millimeter and then there's a 70 to 300 with a variable aperture.
Yeah. So with the 27, that's a good option for the XE4, very pancake lens. With that, it's a 41 millimeter equivalent, so it's that magical 40 that we discussed before many times today.
Yeah.
The theme of this should be 40 millimeters, wonderful. But they added a aperture ring to this because the prior version did not, and weather sealing. So it was one of those ones that needed an update, and they did. It was great. And the 7300, it's not like the show me lens, but it fills a need for people who want something with longer reach. It's a 107 to 457 equivalent. Good price, $800. It's weather sealed, has stabilization, so it's a good option. It has an aperture ring too, and it's another good option for people who just need more reach within the Fuji system, who don't want to spend more than $1,000. So
right. All right, wrapping up lenses, we have the Nisi 15 millimeter f4 Sunstar. I believe they make them for the Nikon Z and Sony E. Maybe more mounts, but that's what I'm seeing here. Any information on that, Kevin?
Yeah, so I talked to Nisi not too long ago, because we had them in for training for our employees going over their filter systems. But they didn't mention the Sunstar lens, and basically it's made for the Nikon Z mount, Sony E mount, Fuji X mount, and the Canon RF mount.
Okay.
Basically, what you're doing with that, it's a very wide angle lens, manual focus, obviously, but it has a 10 blade aperture, and you get Sunstars basically throughout the aperture ring. So that's why it gets that name, because you'll be able to have like distinct points of focus, points of light that are stars with that.
And I imagine at f4, it's probably priced really well. That's an assumption. I've read a little bit about it, but that's my guess, and it's probably a decent size for 15, because 15s, they can get pretty big.
Yeah, with 15 being, and also being f4, it's affordable. It's not a big lens. It goes for $580. So that's a good price, especially for people who want to do like night photography, if you're going to do long exposures, street shooting. So it's a good option, especially for those mounts, because especially with the newer ones like the Nikon Z and RF mount, there's not a lot of third-party options currently. So this helps fill that space a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, I think that wraps up the lens portion of it. Let's remaining time we have here. Let's talk about some of the cameras that came out late 2020 since our last gear show. We had a little bit of flurry of some new cameras, including the Nikon Z6 II and Z7 II. What's your take on that, Kev?
It was a nice evolution from Nikon to actually, not an evolution, but more of something that they needed to do, simply because they came out with the first version of those cameras, and a lot of people were like, what gives? Why is there one card slot? Hey, and why is that card slot XQD? So it's kind of just like people were just kind of like, oh, Nikon, what are you doing here? And Nikon said, okay, we'll give you what you need. So we'll give you 2 card slots. We updated the processors inside of it. A lot of the form factor is like 99.9% the same. And it just gives people more incentive who are shooting with like a D800, D810, D750, or maybe more of a crop censored Nikons to go to their mirrorless line, because it is smaller, the ergonomics are great, and Nikon's image quality has always been top notch. It's just that when their mirrorless line came out, they were kind of just like, a lot of people took it like, wait a second, you're missing something here. So Nikon actually came out and fixed the main gripe that people had with that system. So they're coming out with the lenses slowly but surely, and now you have 2 capable cameras with 2 card slots. And don't sleep on the Z5, because that was a nice release as well from last year. So
Yep.
Now, the Canon PowerShot Zoom was something we spoke about at the end of the year as a novelty, maybe as an interesting camera. Has there been any, not updates to the camera, but any chat on it, any feedback? What do you have to say on it now, Kevin?
I have heard very little on that regard, on that camera, because this thing gets sold as a novelty camera. So a lot of people, it's a little monocular zoom camera. It has this little point, but as far as me hearing about it, dealing with anybody about it, I haven't heard really much on that front.
Okay. Also, last year, Olympus put out a new OMD EM10 3S, which we talked about briefly last year. I don't know if there's anything else to mention on that, but let's get Olympus's name mentioned in the show anyway. Leica, the SL2S, Any thoughts on that, guys?
Well, with that one, that's basically for the people who don't need. It's almost like the situation from the other cameras. If you don't need 47 megapixels, here's 24. The video quality is really good. It's better in low light. It has a multi-shot mode on there. So for people who don't need that extra high resolution, Leica came out with an option for them.
All right.
And since you mentioned the Olympus, basically the difference between the EM10 Mark III and the EM10S is that they added a instant film filter mode, and it has a silent shooting mode. Hence the S. S is for silent.
Gotcha. Oh, cool.
If I could just ask a quick question for you, Kev, because I'm not involved with the store. I used to pass through there every once in a while and snoop and listen to everything else. Who is looking at the Leica SL series cameras? What kind of photographers are coming in? Do you have any? Could you give us a profile? Is there a profile?
From when the SL first came out, it was a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but it was people who were invested in the Leica system. They didn't want trust the Leica colors. Who wanted to go mirrorless, but didn't want to defect to another brand. So that's what I seen with the SL line. Obviously, Panasonic coming out with their series kind of. I don't think it will, erode that fan base because Leica shooters are Leica shooters. And
simply they just want the red dot no matter what. I know, yeah,
exactly. But when the SL first came out, I remember seeing a bunch of people shoot the SL with the M adapter and shooting their classic Leica glass on there.
Right.
And it was something that, I wanted a full frame. I want something more like a mirrorless camera, because I think a lot of people would at that time, before that camera came out, were shooting, let's say, a Sony, just because that was the only option, using the M adapter on a Sony and shooting that way. But then
you just
when Leica
described me exactly, yeah.
Basically, and so that you exactly know how it was. It's here's a Sony. Let me adapt my Leica lenses to it. Oh, this is great. This is fine. And then when Leica came out with theirs, it was now that's home. I could put these lenses, no problem, on there with the Leica branded adapter, and now I have the Leica colors coming from the camera, so it accentuates the lens to the body perfectly.
It's really fun. When the first time I saw that thing, it looked like a brick with a little pentaprism on top, and it was brickish of describing it. And then when I actually had one to use, I was surprised of how comfortable it really was in my hand. Again, I coming from a Sony A7 series camera, I found it very comfortable. It looks heavier and more awkward than it actually feels, which was kind of interesting. And the other camera from Leica that came out at the end of the year was the Q2 monochrome, which I spent some time with. And John, I think you got one right now, right? That you're playing around with for a little while.
Absolutely.
I find it to be an amazing camera. What are your thoughts so far, John? Have you had any insights?
I haven't really used it as much as I had hoped in the first weekend that I've had it, but I'm looking forward to digging into it in the next couple of days. It's obviously looks great, feels great, and the initial monochrome black and white images that I saw, so far so good. But we probably will be doing a longer show on it and definitely talking about it more in the near future. So I look forward to hearing you and your thoughts on it, and Jason's thoughts as well.
All right. I think we covered pretty much everything from, say, November 2020 to the present. Kevin, any other thoughts? We miss anything? You have any other 2 cents pieces to throw in here?
I think we covered a lot of the new releases from the first half of this year. A lot of it is very lens-centric. So all these manufacturers are giving choices to the consumer to pick out something that, the focal length or focal lengths that they could be more creative with. So I see that becoming not more the norm per se, but more how it's going to continue into this year. We may see some new releases down the road from other brands trying to, keep up or retweak a camera or two. But people were worried about the photo industry as far as releases and such like that. But Sony came out with 4 lenses in 2 weeks. So I don't think we're going to lose any tools in the coming months. We're just going to gain them. So I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. That's a wrap of another B&H Photography podcast. Today's episode was supported by Audio-Technica. Check out the link in our show notes to their product page on the B&H website. And please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, find us on the B&H Explorer blog and join us on the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. My name is Alan Weitz, and on behalf of John Harris and Jason Tables, thank you so much for tuning in today.